After my fiancé fell for a talented scholar disguised as a man who came to the capital to study, I demanded we call off the engagement. He refused. I merely admire her learning. Later, that scholar conspired with others to rebel and was executed on the spot by my brother. He insisted I was jealous and deliberately framed her. After years of scheming, he had my entire clan executed and our property confiscated. As I faced public execution by slow slicing, I saw his younger half-brother gallop up with bow drawn. A single arrow struck him down. "You killed her. How dare you still dream of soaring to power and becoming the highest minister?" When I opened my eyes again, I had returned 6 years earlier. To the day he refused to annul the betrothal. "I merely admire her learning. Why are you jealous?" I shook my head, speaking sincerely. "I am not jealous. My affections have simply shifted. Kindly make room. I intend to betroth myself to your younger brother." Main text: On the day Siafema killed me, the entire Shin residence ran red with blood. He led his ironclad troops, slaughtering every last member of my clan without mercy. He ordered men to pin my arms, forcing me to watch my parents and brother die horribly. I was the last. Siafema used a dagger as thin as a cicada's wing to slice away my flesh, piece by piece. In the end, only a stark skeleton remained. The agony made my body convulse. I couldn't even cry out. "Does it hurt? Do you know how much pain Tang Tang felt when you framed her, and she died by your brother's blade?" His voice was icy cold as he drew his long sword. "Shinguin, I'll cut open your heart to see if a venomous woman like you has a black heart." Just as the sword tip was about to pierce my heart. From afar, a rider suddenly charged through the blizzard on a swift horse. In the next instant, an arrow pierced straight through Siafema's heart. Scorching blood splattered across my face. My vision blurred. All I could hear was a voice, strange yet familiar, filled with fury. "You killed her. How dare you still dream of rising to the highest ranks of power?" It was Siafema's younger half-brother. Xie Jingzhan, the teenage general who had achieved glorious military feats at 15. When I opened my eyes again, the excruciating pain of lingering torture still seared through my body. My vision gradually shifted from darkness to light. The next moment, a familiar male voice, tinged with displeasure, sounded. "Ain, I've told you countless times, I merely admire her talents. Why must you make such unreasonable demands?" I blinked, lifting my lashes. Before me lay a sandalwood table and a celadon cup. Not far away stood Siafema, his expression cold, shielding by Tang behind him. She stood hesitant, words on the tip of her tongue. Memories flowed back like a river, and I suddenly remembered. This was that day. In my previous life, it was also this day. I had accidentally discovered by Tang's truth that she was disguised as a man. Thinking of how she and Siafema had been inseparable for nearly half a year, I had a huge argument with him and demanded we call off the engagement. Instead, Bai Tang had retorted with a sarcastic tone, "Miss Shin, confined to your boudoir, you've neither studied the 4 books and 5 classics nor seen the vastness of sky and sea. Naturally, you'd be unaware that beyond romantic love between men and women, there exist many other kinds of affection in this world. My relationship with Brother Xia is one of pure friendship, always open and honest." Before I could speak, Siafema frowned and added, "You know very well I've always valued talent above all." Such a misunderstanding truly chills my heart. Amidst their back and forth, I found myself brainwashed. I truly believed I'd been overly suspicious. I even apologized to them. Just as this thought crossed my mind, I heard Siafema's next words, "How can marriage be treated as a child's game?" Very well. Brother Bai and I uphold the noble gentleman's way and are always magnanimous. We shall not hold today's words against you. I watched his self-righteous demeanor. Suddenly, I laughed. "Brother Bai? Now you address me so formally. How many times will you have to call me Tang Tang before I'll come over?" At these words, the expressions of the 2 men before me shifted abruptly. I pretended not to notice Xie Ma's inscrutable expression and asked amiably, "By the way, at the Princess of Pingnan's poetry gathering today, your younger brother must have accompanied you, right?" He paused, then wore a look of disdain and disgust. "He's merely a son of a concubine. How could he possibly be worthy of accompanying me?" Xie Ma was the only legitimate son of the princess, while Xie Jingzhan was born to a concubine. He had always looked down on Xie Jingzhan. Yet, because of his remarkable military achievements at a young age, he couldn't help but fear him. In my past life, to leverage my Shen family's influence and vie with Xie Jingzhan for the position of crown prince, Xie Ma married me despite his mutual affection with Bai Tang. After our marriage, he frequently stayed out all night, constantly traveling to the outskirts of the capital. I only discovered the truth after secretly following him once. Bai Tang was hidden away in a golden house, kept there by him. That night, when Xie Ma returned home carrying Bai Tang's scent, I confronted him in a fierce argument. In his rage, he shoved me, causing me to miscarry. On the second day of my bed rest, my dowry maid Zhu told me Xie Ma had clashed with Xie Jingzhan at the training grounds. During their confrontation, Xie Jingzhan accidentally stabbed Xie Ma with a sword. Why is he unworthy? Snapping back to reality. I saw Xie Ma before me, his expression grim. I let out a light laugh. "Xie Ma, I wish to annul our betrothal. This is neither jealousy nor a whim, but a shift in my affections. Kindly make room. I intend to betroth myself to your younger brother." With those words, I turned and walked away. Xie Ma was both furious and stunned, unable to believe it. "Shen Guiyin. Have you lost your mind? Do you know what you're saying?" He was about to chase after me. But a eunuch suddenly appeared and blocked him. "Young Master Xia, young Master Bai, the princess has requested your presence." I knew. At today's poetry gathering, Xie Ma had specifically brought Bai Tang to introduce her to the princess. He hesitated for a moment, then led her away. But before leaving, he turned back to me, his voice cold. "Shen Guiyin, our marriage was personally decreed by the princess after she reported it to His Majesty. It's not something you can simply call off. I advise you to give up this notion sooner rather than later. Don't think you can provoke me with that bastard." Perhaps it was because I had no memories of my past life that I truly adored him so deeply. Even now, he still believed that I was deliberately sulking over his affair with Bai Tang. I found Xie Jingzhan in the crabapple grove behind the courtyard. His jet-black hair was tied high, his crimson robe blazing like fire as he practiced swordplay beneath the trees. The sword's gleam was fierce, flicking up the fallen crabapple blossoms strewn across the ground. That year, he was 15. Even as a youth, he had grown remarkably tall. As his form shifted, petals fluttered past his eyes and brows, accentuating his intensely painted features with a strikingly vivid beauty. I stopped and called out, "Xie Jingzhan." The sword's glint continued, slicing through another shower of blossoms, halting just an inch from my nose. His piercing gaze swept over my face. His lips curved into a smirk, his expression tinged with defiance. "Miss Shen, did you lose your way while searching for my brother? How did you end up here?" He paused, not waiting for my reply, before adding, "I have no time to escort you to him." I remembered. In my past life, because of Xie Ma, my relationship with Xie Jingzhan was far from good. At first, we were both young. Every time we met, he would still call me sister. He would circle around me, preparing birthday gifts for me. Later, seeing my utterly cold attitude, and even helping Xie Ma make things difficult for him on multiple occasions, he gradually adopted a defiant posture. From the day I married until after my death in that past life, we never once sat down to exchange a single complete sentence. Why so quiet, Shen Guiyin? Are you about to cry after just 2 sentences? Snapping back to reality, I took a deep breath and reached out to pluck the crabapple petal clinging to his cheek. "Could you accompany me to the front hall to find Xie Ma?" My fingertip brushed his cheek. His ears had flushed crimson, but at my words, his expression turned icy once more. why should I accompany you? Today, before all the noble young masters of the capital, I will annul our betrothal. We severed ties completely. I cut him off, smiling as I met his suddenly bright, puppy-like eyes. Xie Jingzhan, you're coming with me. Why should I accompany you? He snorted derisively, averting his gaze. After a few breaths, he turned back to find me still staring at him intently, his ears flushing slightly. Ugh, such a hassle. He raised an eyebrow as if impatient. Fine. Seeing Xie Feima humiliated is a sight I'd gladly witness. I'll accompany you. He walked beside me with such natural ease that I only then noticed. This 15-year-old boy was already a full head taller than me. We walked side by side down the long corridor. The voices from the front hall grew louder as we approached. Xie Jingzhan suddenly seized my wrist hanging at my side, his voice tinged with an inexplicable emotion. Shen Guiyin, let me make this clear, using me to provoke Xie Feima is fine, but I'm not someone you can easily shake off. I froze. Before I could respond, the pale-faced eunuch attending the princess appeared once more. His drooping eyelids swept over my hand clasped with Xie Jingzhan's. Then he ushered us into the inner chamber. The beaded curtain lifted to reveal the grand princess, seated high in the hall with an air of authority, gazing at me coldly. Shen Guiyin, do you know your crime? I pressed my lips together, observing Bai Tang standing intimately beside her, and Xie Feima, his gaze fixed on me with a faint, confident smile, his expression serene and assured. Suddenly, memories of my past life surfaced. Because I had mentioned annulling my engagement to Xie Jingzhan, the princess regent had inexplicably flown into a rage, even hurling a teacup at me, injuring me. I immediately knelt. Your Highness, this humble maiden knows not what crime she has committed. Your marriage to the eldest son of the Xie family was personally decreed by this palace. You suddenly seek to annul it on the pretext of groundless rumors. Is this not a sign of discontent toward this palace? Don't even think about breaking off this engagement. As a maiden confined to the inner quarters, you've been secretly meeting with your fiancé's younger half-brother. How do you even know how to write the words shame and decency? As she spoke these final words, she indeed grabbed the teacup and hurled it at me. Yet unlike in my past life, the cup did not strike my forehead, leaving a scar that disfigured me. Instead, a long sword intercepted it mid-air. The sword tip spun the celadone cup twice before it fell to the ground, shattering. Xie Jingzhan gave a cold snort and sheathed his sword with a crisp motion. Xie Jingzhan. The princess's voice was icy cold. You dare draw your sword in my presence? Are you plotting rebellion? Your Highness overstates the case. The Shen family has served loyally for generations. Commander Shen was just last month praised by His Majesty for his youthful valor. I merely feared you might miss your mark. If the teacup had scarred the Shen family's daughter's face, how could I explain it to His Majesty? Xie Jingzhan showed no fear in his eyes. He simply slung his sword over his shoulder and knelt with unflinching composure. Tall and slender, his back remained perfectly straight even as he knelt, like a sturdy young white poplar tree. The princess clenched the armrest tightly, her rage turning to a bitter laugh. Are you threatening me? It was common knowledge in the capital that just last month, she had been reprimanded by His Majesty for her unruly behavior and confined to the princess's residence for half a month. Her temper was notoriously volatile, wicked to the extreme. I finally snapped back to my senses and knelt down. I opened my mouth to speak, but suddenly felt the icy cold hilt of a sword press against the back of my hand. The next moment, Xie Jingzhan spoke first. Not at all. This humble servant's heart is filled with loyalty and devotion, entirely for the princess's sake. The words had barely left his mouth when Xie Feima coldly rebuked, Xie Jingzhan, you have the audacity. Do you think you can deceive both your elder brother and the princess? If it weren't for your secret dealings with Shen Guiyin, why would she suddenly propose annulling the engagement to me? Annulment? Xie Jingzhan raised an eyebrow slightly. In that case, shouldn't you be reflecting on your own actions? Xie Feima's lips turned pale with fury. You. Enough. I was only gone a moment. Why all this commotion? A steady, authoritative female voice sounded from the doorway. I turned my head, instinctively following the sound, and saw the princess consort of Pingnan standing in the doorway. Her gaze swept around the room, finally settling on the eldest princess. Jianing, I thought you asked me to lend you a place to formally adopt a goddaughter. Why is the floor suddenly covered with people kneeling? Clearly, she held the eldest princess Jianing primarily responsible for this entire farce. The late Prince of Pingnan had distinguished himself in battle, and even before his majesty, the princess consort's words carried considerable weight. The princess's expression shifted slightly. She lowered her eyes and said, "It's all because that Shen family daughter and that Xia family illegitimate son were so ill-mannered. I merely gave them a few words of correction. You're not young yourself. Why quibble with youngsters? It's a rare day. Let them play." With a few words, the princess consort swept the matter under the rug. I curtsied to her in thanks and turned to leave. As I walked step by step toward the exit, I could still feel a cold, piercing gaze fixed on my back, as if it longed to pierce right through me. It was Princess Jianing. Suddenly, I sensed something was amiss. According to my past life's memories, today should have been the day Xia Feima first introduced Bai Tang to the princess. Yet the princess consort of Pingnan claimed it all began when the princess asked to borrow the venue, saying she wished to adopt a goddaughter. Could it be that these two had known each other before today? Lost in thought, I failed to notice my pace quickening. Until someone suddenly yanked my collar backward. "The steps are right ahead. Are you trying to kill yourself?" The scenery whizzed past, and the sudden shift in perspective instantly transported me back to my past life. In a segment of memory I had previously overlooked, it was several days after my brother had resolved Bai Tang's treason case. When I met him, his brow remained deeply furrowed. I asked what was troubling him. After a moment's pause, he finally said, "That day, at the execution site of the rebels, I discovered the princess's token. I later reported it to His Majesty. The Emperor said nothing, merely took the item and ordered me to keep it secret." As I recalled, I murmured unconsciously, "Rebellion. The eldest princess. Xinguoyin, are you out of your mind?" Xie Jingzhan's sharply reprimanding voice, tinged with urgency, yanked me back from my recollections. Staring into his eyes mere inches away, I steadied myself and asked, "Xie Jingzhan, do you wish to become the heir to the Marquis of Anyuan?" He froze, then scoffed, "I can earn my own merits in the army and personally petition His Majesty for my rewards." A hereditary title? Who would covet it besides your useless fiancé? Then, if I break off the engagement and ruin my reputation, would you still consider betrothal to me? His gaze grew colder as he studied me. Is this another ploy of yours, testing me on his behalf? Xinguoyin, I warn you, I'm not as easily fooled as I once was. His words trailed off as his voice suddenly went hoarse. A soft pouch slipped into his palm. Embroidered upon it were spring begonia blossoms, my favorite flowers. I'm not deceiving you. There are simply matters I cannot elaborate upon now. If I say I'll betroth myself to you, I will never go back on my word, provided you consent. Xie Jingzhan, this is a token of my promise." With that, I lifted my skirt and hurried home by carriage. Back in my room, I picked up my brush and wrote down the pivotal moments of my past life. The first was today, at the poetry gathering. Bai Tang shone brilliantly, her fame echoing throughout the capital. Meanwhile, the Princess Dowager struck my forehead with a teacup, leaving a scar that would haunt me for a decade. The second was 6 months later, when Xie Jingzhan was appointed deputy general and led troops to quell bandit uprisings along the southeastern coast. After single-handedly slaying 100 foes and achieving glorious military exploits, he returned triumphant to the capital. The day his army entered the city was the very day of my wedding to Xia Feima. Later I heard that in the imperial court, the emperor asked him what reward he desired. He remained silent for a long time, asking for nothing. At this point, my pen suddenly halted, leaving a large ink blot on the Xian paper. The third incident occurred in the 3rd year after my marriage to Xia Feima. Shortly after my miscarriage, my brother discovered Bai Tang conspiring with others to plot rebellion. He was executed on the spot. Writing this, the excruciating agony of being tortured to death by 1,000 cuts in my past life surged back. My mind went almost completely blank. When I came to my senses, the Xian paper before me had been crumpled into a ball, ink staining my hands. I knew I couldn't delay any longer. I went to the east courtyard to see my brother. He listened patiently to my story, then asked gently, "Why would you, Ian, break off your engagement to fiancé Ma? Didn't you once love him most of all? What good is love?" He and that Bai Tang were already deeply in love. Marrying me was merely a ploy to leverage the Shen family's influence and compete with his favored younger half-brother for the position of heir apparent. I twisted the handkerchief, forcing a choked tone into my voice. He said that once he inherits the title, he'll force me to request a divorce, then marry Bai Tang in a grand palanquin procession. My brother's expression instantly hardened. "Fiancé Ma actually said that?" "Absolutely true. I heard it with my own ears. Only it wasn't in this life, but in my past one." I silently added in my mind. Seeing my brother's gaze sharpen like a blade, I hastily added, "You needn't worry about the annulment, brother. I know my limits." I recalled how in my past life, my brother had led men to hunt down Bai Tang. If the Princess Regent truly harbored treasonous intentions, he would have incurred her wrath long ago. I only wished to delay his involvement in such matters. Since the annulment had already entangled the princess, rather than letting the Shen family handle it, I'd stir up a scandal myself, framing it as a mere romantic affair. After all, Shen Guiyin was famously willful and capricious throughout the capital. Soon, I stormed into the Imperial Academy. There are women's academies in the capital. Why won't you attend one? Instead, you disguise yourself as a man to infiltrate this place. You know exactly what you're up to. Bai Tang was blocked at the entrance, his brow furrowed. "Miss Shen, I've told you many times, Xie Gongzi and I share only a platonic friendship. We are completely innocent." I ignored him, pressing closer. "Dare you swear?" "Swear that if you've ever crossed the line with him, every wish and dream you hold will remain forever unfulfilled." Her pupils contracted sharply. The gaze she fixed on me flickered with something almost murderous. "Enough. Shen Guiyin, you're clearly in the wrong here. How long do you intend to make the scene?" Fiancé Ma's face darkened as he tried to pull me away. I yanked the golden hairpin from her hair and slashed her arm with it. The uproar eventually reached the imperial throne hall. What momentous affair has escalated to this? I knelt and declared, "Your Majesty, this humble maiden is grateful for the princess's arranged marriage. Yet I cannot bear to separate Xie Gongzi and Bai Girl, a perfect match. I humbly request your Majesty's permission to withdraw from this betrothal and marry another." Before the emperor, the princess could not act as freely as she had that day. She softened her tone, "Shen Guiyin, as a young lady of the inner quarters, first causing a disturbance at the academy, then speaking recklessly about marriage, is this not going too far? If you have misunderstandings with the Xie family's eldest son, you may resolve them gradually." The young emperor did not speak immediately. A moment of silence fell upon the hall. After a long pause, he said indifferently, "This marriage was bestowed by the princess. I must show some consideration to my elder sister, yet I cannot disappoint Grand Tutor Shen. The annulment shall be postponed for now. Let us merely delay the original wedding date and grant the two children more time to get acquainted." Stepping outside the palace gates, Fiancé Ma could no longer conceal the shadow of gloom on his face. He seized my wrist in one swift motion. "Shen Guiyin, this marriage will never unfold as you wish. It ends here. If you truly wish to choose that bastard, abandon that notion now." "Ah." Xie Jingzhan galloped past, lashing Fiancé Ma's hand with his whip. Blood spattered, forcing him to release his grip. "So it was you, brother." He tightened the reins, sitting tall in the saddle as he looked down at him. "From afar, I mistook you for some street ruffian, daring to assault someone in broad daylight, spewing filth. Have your lessons at the academy gone to waste, brother? Given Siafema's temperament, he should have retorted furiously. Yet now, he merely stood against the wall, his gaze dark and fixed on Xie Jingzhan. After a moment, he said coldly, "Rest assured, you'll never defeat me." Before leaving, he glanced at me. The emotion held within that deep, piercing gaze sent an inexplicable chill through me. Before I could dwell on it, the red-clad youth deftly dismounted, Shenguiyin. My sharp eyes spotted the moon-white pouch tied to his waist. The few vibrant spring begonia flowers embroidered on it seemed mismatched with his fluttering crimson robes today. Just as I was about to offer to embroider a new one for him another day, he spoke, "I've heard about your heroic deed today." Me. Xie Jingzhan stood a step away, his gaze intense as he fixed it on me. "Since you chose me, why won't you trust me? Annulling the betrothal isn't as difficult as you imagine. It requires you to risk your reputation as a maiden. I already hold an official post. Moreover, unrest has recently plagued the southeastern coast, and His Majesty has long intended to deploy me with the army. Once I earn further military merit, I can petition the Emperor to issue a decree personally bestowing marriage upon us." The wedding date between Siafema and me had been postponed, unlike the rushed arrangement of my past life. What Xie Jingzhan proposed seemed, for now, the most prudent course. Yet for some reason, the look in Siafema's eyes as he left earlier stirred an inexplicable unease within me. "No, that's too long." I took a deep breath and spoke slowly, "Delay breeds trouble. We must finalize the annulment as soon as possible." He narrowed his eyes and suddenly smiled, "That won't be difficult. Gentlemen have their ways, but dealing with rogues calls for rogues' methods." His features were strikingly beautiful, his brows and eyes especially so when he smiled, yet his gaze held a sharpness that suggested he'd seen blood. Together, they made him resemble a drawn sword. I suspected Xie Jingzhan's looks came from his birth mother. Siafema was nowhere near as handsome. "Shenguiyin, snap out of it." A hand with sharply defined knuckles waved before my eyes. I snapped back to reality. "What method?" Xie Jingzhan arched a long eyebrow. "Your outburst today has made it known throughout the capital that Siafema and that Bai Tang share an ambiguous relationship. If we were to," he left the sentence unfinished. "But I understood. Catch them in the act. In that case, a perfect opportunity awaited just around the corner. 2 months hence would mark my 16th birthday. In my past life, on that very day, Siafema delivered a salve. He claimed it was a priceless remedy procured from a divine physician, promising swift healing for the scar upon my forehead. Yet afterward, that scar only grew more pronounced. It wasn't until the day our family was confiscated that he confessed. The ointment was deliberately prepared to disfigure me. And while I rejoiced over his birthday gift, he and Bai Tang were locked in a passionate embrace behind the rockery in our backyard. Suppressing the nausea rising in my stomach, I resolved to lead all the women of the household and the celebrating guests behind the rockery on my birthday. Before all those eyes, I would expose his sordid affair with Bai Tang. Not even the eldest princess could save this marriage then. Days passed swiftly until the day of my coming-of-age ceremony. The mansion was adorned with lanterns and decorations, preparations beginning before dawn. Since I remained unharmed this lifetime, the ointment Siafema sent transformed into a box of fragrant cream that left skin soft and fragrant. Standing opposite me, he showed not a trace of the fury from that day. He merely smiled gently, saying, "I've been neglectful these past days, leaving Ayin cold. It won't happen again. Try it now. I had this specially blended, it carries the scent of spring begonia, your favorite." To avoid arousing suspicion, I dabbed a bit of the balm onto my fingertip and spread it evenly across my hand. After a short while, I went to check again. Siafema and Bai Tang were both gone. After giving final instructions to the maid Yin Lu, I lifted my skirt hem and headed toward the rear courtyard. The shade was dense, yet inexplicably, the further I walked, the hotter I grew, my strength fading by the moment. Just as I reached a rockery, a hand suddenly grabbed me and pulled me inside. Shinguin, now that I know of my past life, how could I possibly fall into your trap? Xia Feima's cold voice rang out. It wasn't loud, yet it thundered like a bolt of lightning in my ears. From the shadows behind the rockery, I stared in shock at his face, smug and utterly certain. In that instant, I understood the meaning behind that look from long ago. Xia Feima had returned too. He pinned me against the rockery, his body looming over mine as his face drew closer, inch by inch. His scorching breath brushed my nostrils. This time, I won't give you another chance to frame Tang Tang. When the people you arranged arrive, they'll only see us here, unable to resist our passion. You'll be clinging to me, begging for pleasure like a lowly dog. Our wedding date remains unchanged. I will marry you. Once I've exploited you and the Shin family to the fullest, I'll send you to eternal damnation. I listened to his smug narration, staring at his face mere inches away, struggling desperately to break free. Yet my body refused to obey. My heightened senses strained to hear the chaotic clatter of approaching footsteps. And Yen Lu's puzzled voice, as I'd instructed her, strange. Just now, Master Xia seemed to be with a young lady here. Xia Feima smirked triumphantly, leaning close to whisper in my ear, listen. They're coming. A bone-chilling coldness gripped my heart. I bit down hard on my tongue, using the sharp pain to snap myself partially awake from the drug's haze. Yet the next instant, the weight pressing down on me suddenly lightened. A familiar scent of grass and wood mingled with the breeze. Opening my eyes, I saw Xia Jingzhan standing atop the rugged rockery, looking down at me from above. After all these years of studying, is this the best you can do, brother? Such lowly tricks? He flicked the tip of his sword forward, inch by inch. Xia Feima, helpless, was forced to retreat step by step. His final foot slipped, sending him tumbling into the lake behind him. Only then did I notice Xia Jingzhan was still holding someone in his grasp. Her gaze, brimming with seething hatred, fixed intently on both Xia Jingzhan and me. Yet, inexplicably, she lacked even the strength to struggle free. It's because of those potions Xia Feima used. I borrowed them and let her try them too. As if reading my inner confusion, Xia Jingzhan offered an explanation. He raised an eyebrow at Bai Tang, who was glaring at him as if she could kill him with her eyes. You like hiding on the sidelines watching the spectacle, don't you? Then come join us down there. Plop! Came the sound of Bai Tang hitting the water as he tossed her into the lake. Before the ladies-in-waiting could follow Yen Lu over, Xia Jingzhan leapt down and stood before me. The poison Xia Feima had laced into the perfume was taking effect. Its venom spread through my flesh and veins, turning my blood into molten lava that seared my entire body into a boiling rage. A thin veil of tears clouded my vision. Through the blur, I could only see Xia Jingzhan drawing ever closer. He bent down and lifted me into his arms. Forgive me, sister. I was like a burning flame suddenly plunged into a downpour of spring rain. The scenery whizzed past, and I could only make out Xia Feima and Bai Tang tangled together in the lake, their bodies twisted by the drug's effects. And standing on the shore, the womenfolk of various families, their eyes fixed on the unspeakable scene unfolding between them. Yen Lu stood beneath the willow branches, hands on her hips, her voice urgent and rapid, yet every word crystal clear, young Master Xia. Our young lady repeatedly offered to facilitate your union with Miss Bai, yet you refused, insisting your relationship was pure. And now? On the very day of our daughter's coming-of-age ceremony, you two are in the lake. She covered her face with her sleeve at this point, her expression one of disgust. She seemed unable to continue, the words too shameful to utter. From the crowd of women, the leading voice, that of the Left Chancellor's wife, asked, Yen Lu, where is your young mistress? The young mistress received young Master Xia's birthday gift today. She was so overjoyed that she knocked over her teacup and stained her gown. She has returned to her chambers to change. Beyond that, I heard nothing more. Only Xia Jingzhan's slightly hurried breathing echoed in my ears. 13 He carried me and turned to ascend the second floor of the pavilion. This space was filled with my father and brother's book collections. Aside from the servants who came periodically to clean, few ever set foot here. By the window stood a sandalwood table piled high with miscellaneous books. Xie Jingzhan brushed the volumes aside, laid me gently upon it, and leaned closer. Shenguiyin. Ian, are you all right? Sunlight streamed through the window lattice, reflecting in his eyes as fragments of pale gold danced within his pupils. I opened my mouth, only to realize my voice was hoarse and strained. I'm so hot. A cold, murderous intent flashed in Xie Jingzhan's eyes. He actually drugged you. I won't let him get away with this. His fingers lingered hesitantly along my jawline. At one moment, his fingertips brushed my cheek, like a parched soul suddenly encountering a single drop of rain. I pressed myself against him almost instinctively. Help me, Xie Jingzhan. Please help me. You've already accepted my token. Sooner or later, you'll marry me anyway. Later, once I've annulled my engagement to your brother, I'll personally come to ask for your hand. I rambled incoherently, losing track of my own words by the end. The fire burning in my mind grew ever brighter, eventually merging with the depths of my body, leaving only an endless expanse of searing lava. My thoughts nearly ground to a halt, and even I couldn't discern what I was saying. The youth's ears flushed crimson. Hesitantly, he pressed a kiss to my lips before pulling away. No. We cannot do this. You are still unmarried. The last thread of reason snapped within my mind. I seized his collar and sat up abruptly. I have long been married. His wandering gaze snapped back, fixing on me. In my past life, our bond was severed. I married your elder brother. He wed me for power, yet his heart remained with Bai Tang. In our bedchamber, he only humiliated me. That child I later miscarried was conceived under such circumstances. So I often thought, it was better she never came into this world. Better she never endured its suffering. No sooner had she spoken these words than the drug's effects surged back like a tidal wave. I bit my lip, struggling to stifle the ragged gasps escaping my teeth. Today, behind the rockery. If you hadn't come, I would have met the same fate as before. Her words trailed off, silenced by the youth's passionate, reckless kiss. Shenguiyin, I'm giving you a chance to change your mind. I'll help you, but I won't touch you. My mind was already a complete haze, unable to discern the emotion in his expression as he spoke. Dazed, I asked, how will you help? I haven't been without my own absurd dreams. His ears flushed crimson as he buried his face. Kisses traced the wet trail downward. Moonlight melted, streams fell. The sunlight surrounding me was now entirely tinged with sensual hues. I'll change and head to the front hall. Yan Lu should have already made a scene. Once the storm subsided, Xie Jingzhan slipped past the servants, carrying me back to my small courtyard. I changed into a fresh set of clothes and sat back before my dressing table. While arranging my hair and drawing my brows before the bronze mirror, I instructed without turning my head, you should leave through the back door first. By all accounts, today is my coming-of-age banquet, and your presence isn't strictly necessary. To avoid complications, you needn't intervene in the annulment later. I'll handle it myself. After I finished speaking, the room fell silent. No one answered. Doubt crept into my heart. Just as I turned to look back, my hair suddenly felt heavy. In the bronze mirror, Shenguiyin now wore a beautiful and luxurious gemstone hairpin in her bun. Why shouldn't I appear? I still need to present you with your coming-of-age gift. Xie Jingzhan arched an eyebrow in satisfaction, rising with his sword in hand. The item is delivered. I'll take my leave now. As he reached the doorway, the ceaseless chirping of cicadas outside the window grew louder. He halted abruptly, turning back. Shenguiyin, don't discard me once you've used me. I'll await your marriage proposal. My heart trembled. Clutching my skirt hem, I dashed to the door and looked up. The youth had already leapt into the air, vanishing in an instant. After his rebirth, Siafema had become ruthless, leaving no room for mercy. The ointment he delivered contained an extremely potent dose. Precisely because of this, after Xie Jingzhan applied it to Bai Tang and Siafema himself, they remained unable to control themselves even in the icy lake water. After dressing, I pressed a handkerchief to my flushed eyes and hurried to the front hall. Siafema and Bai Tang were already kneeling there, soaked through. Two figures sat upon the high dais. Princess Jianing, her expression a mix of shock and fury. And the emperor, his gaze deep and unfathomable. I ventured out incognito today, intending to join my imperial sister at the Shen family's coming-of-age ceremony. Little did I expect to be dealing with this. After a long silence, the young emperor spoke in a detached tone, "Since you and Miss Bai could not control yourselves even in another's household, I shall not force a separation. Your betrothal to the Shen family's daughter is hereby dissolved." Xia Feima lifted his head. His gaze met mine as I stood in the doorway, breathing a sigh of relief. A flash of venom crossed his eyes. He suddenly pointed at me and declared, "Your Majesty, this vile woman has set me up. She first conspired with my younger half-brother, Xie Jingzhan. She may well be carrying his child. Fearing discovery, she insisted on breaking off our engagement. Today's events, both this servant and Miss Bai were drugged by her, nonsense." Before Xie Feima could finish, before I could react, my brother stepped forward and kicked him squarely in the shoulder. "You were the one who committed adultery first. How dare you slander my sister?" My brother, trained in martial arts since childhood, delivered a powerful kick. Xie Feima, already kneeling, was sent flying backward. "Enough." The emperor glanced at Xie Feima on the ground, then turned to my brother. "Minister Shen, I understand your devotion to your sister. Since the marriage is off, there's no need for further entanglement." This effectively brushed aside the incident of my brother striking someone in the emperor's presence. Princess Jianing, standing nearby, protested reluctantly, "Your Majesty, though Xie Feima's words were somewhat offensive, they are not entirely without merit. It is not impossible that Miss Shen, desperate to annul the marriage, might have acted rashly in her haste. Why not have her undergo a physical examination? That would prove Miss Shen's innocence." My body stiffened. Though Xie Jingzhan and I hadn't gone that far in the pavilion earlier, I wasn't afraid of the examination itself. However, if I were forced to prove my innocence on the very day of my coming-of-age ceremony, certain labels would likely follow me for the rest of my life. Fortunately, before I could speak, the emperor interjected with disapproval. "Without evidence, if I were to issue such an edict, would it not chill the loyalty of Minister Shen's generations of faithful service? This matter shall not be discussed further." The princess remained silent for a moment before continuing, "Though this marriage has been called off, to avoid giving others cause for gossip, it would be best if your Majesty refrained from arranging a marriage between Miss Shen and Xie Jia's second son." The emperor nodded, rising with a weary air, "My elder sister speaks wisely. So be it." Before departing, Xie Feima turned to me, a chilling smile playing on his lips. He spoke each word deliberately, "My lady, this matter is far from over." A chill shot down my spine, sending a sudden shiver through me. For in my past life, whenever he tormented and taunted me at home, even when he ultimately subjected me to Lingqi, he always used that very title. Steeling myself, I met his gaze calmly, "Mr. Xia, our betrothal has been dissolved. I request you refrain from using that title henceforth." He snorted coldly and turned to leave. However, due to the eldest princess's meddling, though my betrothal to Xie Feima was annulled, I couldn't directly petition the emperor to have him bestow a new marriage upon me with Xie Jingzhan. Thus, 7 nights later, Xie Jingzhan knocked on my window. "Shen Guiyin, I waited at home every day for you to come propose marriage, yet you deceived me again." In the moonlight, the young man's face, still tinged with anger, looked exceptionally handsome. I was momentarily lost in thought. When I came to my senses, I sighed helplessly. It's not that I don't want to. But on the day of my coming-of-age ceremony, the eldest princess was also present. Although the marriage was annulled, she took the opportunity to advise His Majesty that to avoid giving people something to gossip about, he shouldn't grant a marriage decree for us. He acknowledged with a grunt, his voice tinged with displeasure. I know. Then why did you come tonight? To see if my sister has forgotten me. Xie Jingzhan drew the pouch embroidered with crabapple blossoms from his robe and waved it before my eyes. Glad you haven't forgotten. Don't worry about the imperial match, I'll find a way. I stared blankly at his eyes, now alight with determination. Suddenly, memories of my past life flooded back. On the day he returned triumphant to the capital, what reward had he intended to ask the emperor for? As he galloped through the city gates only to collide with the wedding procession of the Marquis of Anyuan, what thoughts had filled his mind? Those few silent breaths spent kneeling in the court chamber were perhaps the best answer. Later, my brother told me that in his youth, Xie Jingzhan fought recklessly among bandits by the sea, nearly sacrificing his life. He returned covered in blood. The brothers in the camp teased him, saying, at such a young age, fighting so fiercely, could it be for someone special? He was silent for a long while before saying yes. But she didn't return his feelings. His reckless courage was merely a plea for her to choose again. Yet I only learned of this story in the second year after marrying Xie Ma. You're zoning out again. The sudden warm touch on my cheek jolted me out of my memories. Coming back to myself, I caught Xie Jingzhan withdrawing his finger. He looked at me thoughtfully. Ever since we met at the Prince of Pingnan's mansion that day, I've always felt something about you is different. Until you told me about your past life. Xinguoyin, is there something you haven't told me? My mouth opened, but when I finally spoke, I couldn't hold back. If I told you, would you believe me? Truthfully, some things I shouldn't have said. Confucius said one should not speak of the supernatural. This matter of death and resurrection, if I hadn't experienced it myself, I'd find it hard to believe. Yet memories of my past life kept replaying in my mind. The last sight I saw before dying was Xie Jingzhan galloping toward me, bow drawn, only to be struck down by his own arrow. He had already attained the rank of first-class official, the emperor's most trusted military commander. Had no complications arisen, he would have enjoyed a lifetime of glory. After a moment's silence, I recounted my entire past life to Xie Jingzhan. Back then, I couldn't fathom what I'd done wrong. He married me to exploit my Shin family's influence in his bid for the crown prince's position. Yet he resented me for tearing apart his ill-fated love with Bai Tang. But all this was clearly his own choice. If Bai Tang truly served the princess, then her treason was merely taking the fall for the princess. Why blame me and my brother? My voice nearly choked on the blood in my throat as I spoke. The agony of Ling Qi was unbearable. I know this sounds absurd, but, before I could finish, Xie Jingzhan suddenly pulled me into his embrace. Not absurd at all. I believe every word you say. He paused briefly, because if these events unfolded in this lifetime, I would do the same. Now I understand, Xinguoyin. I won't let anyone hurt you again. The youth's embrace burned fiercely, yet this whole bore none of the hidden sensuality that had tinged their encounter in the attic that day. Only a gentle, flowing warmth filled the moment. Cradled in his arms, I breathed in the faint herbal scent lingering on his skin, and the turbulent emotions within me gradually subsided. And you said Xie Ma from my past life has returned too, right? Before leaving, Xie Jingzhan paused by the window, his lips curving slightly. A piercing chill flickered in his already defiant eyes. Rest assured, sister. This time, I'll make him pay 1,000-fold price. 2 months later, news of bandit uprisings along the southeastern coast reached the capital. The emperor, enraged, personally selected several generals to quell the rebellion. Among them was the young Xie Jingzhan. Everything in this life unfolded months earlier than in his previous existence. Perhaps due to the multitude of preparations before departure, Xie Jingzhan did not come to see me again. He only sent word through an intermediary, along with a pair of gemstone earrings matching the hairpin he had given me on the day of my coming-of-age ceremony. Shinguiyin, do whatever you wish. Fear nothing. And wait for my return. On the 5th day after his departure, during the evening meal, my brother and father were chatting idly when he suddenly remarked, "It's rather strange. Princess Jianing clearly belongs to Xie Ma's faction." Yet that day in court, she unexpectedly spoke in favor of Xie Jingzhan joining the expedition to quell the unrest in the southeast. I can't help but feel there might be something amiss here. My brother spoke, then glanced at me hesitantly, as if he had more to say. I intended to offer words of comfort, but my chopsticks paused mid-air. For some reason, rumors about the princess came to mind. Whether in my past life or this one, the tales surrounding her always carried a touch of legend. It was said she was the eldest daughter of the late empress. From birth, she enjoyed the late emperor's favor, permitted to study alongside the imperial princes in the imperial study, and even allowed to maintain a small private guard within her princess's residence. Later, when the late emperor passed away, his final decree instructed the current emperor to show special care toward this daughter. Because of this, even when Princess Jianing behaved recklessly, the emperor always treated her with leniency. Thinking of this, I asked my brother, I heard the princess once had a consort. But one New Year's Eve, after entering the palace, he stumbled drunk and drowned in the imperial garden. That is true. My brother nodded. Back then, the late empress was convicted for witchcraft, and the princess was implicated, exiled to the Nanhai-Ningqing region. It was there she met that prince consort. Later, the witchcraft case was overturned, the late empress's wrongful conviction cleared. When Princess Jianing returned to the capital, she brought that prince consort with her. He paused abruptly at this point. I stood up. Isn't Ningqing the place where Xie Jingzhan and the others went to suppress the bandit rebellion this time? My thoughts drifted to my past life, to the unexpectedly hastened timing of the suppression, to the look of pure hatred Xie Ma had shot at me the day he left. My heart pounded frantically in my chest, beating so violently it felt like it might leap out of my throat. I murmured, "No, I must go to Ningqing." "Calm down, Ian." Mother rose as well, pulling me into her embrace. "What kind of place is Ningqing?" "The bandit uprising isn't quelled yet, even the prefect perished there. Even if something fishy is going on, what good would you do, a pampered young lady raised in seclusion?" Mother's embrace was warm and soft, carrying a gentle, tranquil fragrance. Held in the arms that had cradled me since childhood, I calmed slightly. Yet I still whispered, "But he went there for me. If the princess truly intends to harm him, it's because I offended her by breaking off the engagement. If something happens to Xie Jingzhan, Mother, I'll live with the guilt for the rest of my life." "Ian, don't panic. It's just Ningqing. It might be a coincidence." Father stood up, glancing at my brother. "Guixian, later tonight, leave the manor and find a few trustworthy colleagues to inquire about the situation." But I didn't wait for my brother to ask. Because soon, news from the South Sea spread throughout the capital. Xie Jingzhan had disappeared. It was said he was stabbed in the back by a traitor within the army during a fierce battle against bandit leaders. He fell from the ship into the water and vanished without a trace. Though the traitor was executed on the spot, Xie Jingzhan remains unfound. My mind reeled, and I blurted out, was it truly executed on the spot, or was it a cover-up? The princess has resided in Ningqing for years, it's understandable she has influence. But to dare send someone to strike in broad daylight? Isn't that a bit too bold? My brother fixed me with a steady gaze. "Ayin, don't do anything foolish." "I know." I closed my eyes briefly before sitting back down. "He's merely missing. He's the most outstanding young man in the entire capital. Something serious wouldn't happen to him so easily. This time was different from my past life. Xie Jingzhan hadn't yet distinguished himself, he was merely a fourth-rank deputy general. His disappearance hadn't stirred much of a ripple in the capital. Amidst the calm, only Siafe Ma made a point of coming to the mansion to find me. He stood before me, his expression smug and confident. "Shenguyen, so what if you've been reborn? So what if the betrothal was annulled? Now that Xie Jingzhan is dead, I am the most trusted confidant of Her Highness the eldest princess. How can you possibly contend with me?" I stared at him, expressionless. "In my past life, you caused Tong Tong's death, and I had you executed by slow slicing. We're even. This time, though you insist on breaking off our engagement, I remember our past as husband and wife and won't hold your affair with Xie Jingzhan against you." As he spoke, he reached out, intending to touch my face. "If you just kneel and beg me, I'll speak to the princess and take you as my concubine." Before his hand could touch me, I took a sharp step back and slapped him across the face with my open hand. "If you're still dreaming, why not slit your own throat to wake up?" I sneered coldly, "A useless piece of trash who can't accomplish anything without a woman. How dare you even compare yourself to your brother?" Enraged, he lunged forward to retaliate, only to be met by me snatching a vase from the table and smashing it into his head. Blood gushed forth instantly. Xie Fei Ma clutched his head, letting out a shrill, agonized scream. Ever since news of Xie Jingzhan's disappearance reached my ears, the raging fury and utter helplessness burning fiercely within my heart finally subsided a little. Go. Go back now and complain to the Long Princess. Tell her I injured you. Have her report it to the Emperor and bring punishment upon me." I sneered at his blood-soaked face. "After all, whether in this life or the last, you're nothing but a coward clinging to women's skirts to scrape by. Useless." The shattering of the vase was too loud. As I spoke, the maidservants outside had already noticed the commotion within the room. Yan Lu burst in, shielding me with a sharp voice. "Mr. Xia. This is our young mistress's private chamber. You barged in without permission. Do you have no sense of propriety?" Xie Fei Ma ignored her, clutching his gash on his forehead as he fixed me with a deathly stare. After a long moment, he suddenly laughed. "The Shen family is finished, Shenguyen. Let's see how long your arrogance lasts." The incident where I struck Xie Fei Ma was reported to the Emperor by the princess, who sought to punish me. Yet the Emperor dismissed it, merely youthful playfulness. Perhaps the blow was rash. I shall instruct Minister Shen to discipline his daughter properly. My sister need not dwell on this matter. In the end, my father was fined 2 months' salary. The matter was settled. Half a month later came the mid-autumn banquet in the palace. Xie Jingzhan had already told me, if he returned victorious, the emperor would ask him what reward he desired at this court banquet. Then, he would petition for an imperial decree granting him marriage to me. Suppressing the gnawing ache in my heart, I let Yanlu dress me before boarding the carriage to the palace with mother. The scent of golden osmanthus wafted through the palace grounds. Seated in the most inconspicuous spot among the women, I lowered my head to sip tea when suddenly a voice asked, "Miss Shen, was your betrothal to Xie's eldest son dissolved during your coming-of-age banquet?" It was the princess consort of Pingnan. I curved my lips slightly. "Yes, thank you for your concern, Your Highness. On the day of your coming of age, I was confined to bed and unable to celebrate with you. But I heard of what followed. It's for the best that the marriage was called off. After all, our bond was too thin, and he lacked the fortune for it." As we spoke, a line of eunuchs approached, reverently presenting trays of freshly made pastries. Suddenly, disaster struck. A blood-soaked figure stumbled into the hall, gasping hoarsely, "The Princess Regent has rebelled." Before the words faded, an arrow whistled through the air, piercing his chest. He staggered and collapsed. Deep within the palace, distant flickering flames and cries of battle echoed. Ah! Chaos erupted within the hall. Amidst the panicked shrieks of court officials and ladies-in-waiting, I pulled my mother and the princess consort of Pingnan back 2 steps, hiding behind a vase concealed by a screen. Then, without a flicker of emotion, I drew the sharp hairpin from my hair. This gem-encrusted golden pin was the coming-of-age gift Xie Jingzhan had given me. Whether in my past life or this one, whenever I found myself in peril, his aid always seemed to arrive. I took a deep breath and stepped toward the open side of the screen. Ayin. Mother grabbed my sleeve, her voice filled with panic. What are you doing? You have no martial arts training, don't act impulsively. This isn't impulsiveness. I've long since offended the princess with my past actions. I turned my head and whispered, she's harbored rebellious thoughts for years and must have made thorough preparations. Bai Tang and Xie Fei Ma are both her people, and they hate me to the bone. If I don't go out now, she'll send men to find me. Then I'll only drag mother and the princess consort down with me. Besides, I've already died once. Whatever fate awaits me now can't be worse than the Lingqi torture I endured in my past life. Gripping my golden hairpin tightly, I stepped out from behind the screen only to be surrounded by Xie Fei Ma and his men. He stood ramrod straight, eyes lowered as he looked at me, smirking triumphantly, "You're my prisoner once more, Shen Guiyin. It's too late for pleas now. Even if you stripped naked and begged on your knees, I wouldn't give you a second glance." I smiled at him, then spat in his face, "If you're truly mad, seek treatment sooner rather than later." You. Furious, he reached for his sword, then suddenly restrained himself as if remembering something. "Rest assured, every humiliation you've inflicted, I remember every detail. I won't let you die easily. I'll make you suffer 1,000 times more intensely than in your past life. And you think you can do that?" When that familiar young voice rang out, I thought I was hallucinating. Xie Jingzhan drew his sword. Amidst the crisscrossing flashes of cold steel, Xie Fei Ma retreated inch by inch, almost panicked. Before Xie Jingzhan, he had never possessed the strength to fight back. Past life or present, it remained unchanged. The wind whistled past my ears. After the clash of blades, the scene before my eyes abruptly shifted. I fell into Xie Jingzhan's embrace, securely wrapped in his cloak. His other hand gripped the sword, its tip fixed and unmoving, aimed at Xie Fei Ma standing several paces away. A failure reborn remains a failure. Xie Fei Ma, what on earth gives you the confidence that a few extra years of life could somehow make your feeble mind capable of plotting rebellion? Xie Fei Ma snapped back. You were faking it. I merely played along with your scheme, as you wished. Xie Jingzhan turned away indifferently. The eldest princess was cautious her entire life. Her greatest mistake was choosing you, a useless fool, as her ally. My racing heart gradually calmed. I took 2 deep breaths, steadied myself on Xie Jingzhan's shoulders, and scanned the surroundings. Only then did I notice that the Grand Princess's private guards and the Imperial guards she had bribed were all subdued within the hall. Sister, step back. Go to your mother. Xie Jingzhan's men arrived, subduing Xie Fei Ma and his followers. He sheathed his sword, turned to give me a final instruction, then strode toward the high throne at the hall's foremost position. A few steps away, on the platform, the young emperor stood facing Princess Jianing across the distance. In his eyes, usually calm and commanding, a hint of sorrow flickered. I have always remembered the entrustment of our late emperor and empress, showing leniency toward my imperial sister. Yet it seems you have never cherished our sibling bond. Sibling affection? When have we ever shared any such bond? The princess shouted fiercely, "Shui Changfeng, dare you lay your hand on your heart and claim you've never done anything to betray me?" On New Year's Eve 4 years ago, Ting Zhou promised me before entering the palace that he'd return after paying his respects to keep watch with me. How could he have been drinking in the palace? How could he have become so utterly drunk that he stumbled and fell into the lake in the imperial garden? Dare you claim his death was not entirely your doing? I killed him because he had long harbored treasonous intentions. I was the one who harbored treasonous thoughts. The eldest princess cut him off, her voice sharper, bordering on madness. Every word he spoke, every action he took, was entirely for my sake. Since you knew I longed to seize power, why didn't you kill me? Why didn't you come for me? The emperor's eyes were slightly reddened at the corners, because you are my sister. The eldest princess ignored him. You're weak and indecisive. In strategy, in scholarship, in martial arts, you fall short in every way. I refuse to accept it. Why did Father Emperor choose you as crown prince? He claimed I was his most cherished daughter, yet what was the outcome? I merely kept a few secret guards for my own protection, and he summoned me to the imperial study, ordering me to dismiss them. He said it was absolutely imperative not to make things difficult for you. Shui Changfeng, this is what you owe me. As the last syllable left her lips, a dagger slid from her sleeve and plunged fiercely toward the emperor. A wet thud, the sound of steel sinking into flesh. Xie Jingzhan's sword was faster. The princess, clad in her ornate robes, turned her head with difficulty and glanced at Xie Jingzhan. It's you again. Blood spilled from the corners of her mouth. Staggering, she collapsed down the steps. In the silence so profound you could hear a pin drop, I saw the young monarch on the steps close his eyes. His hand, hanging at his side, trembled as he raised it, then lowered it again. After a moment, his solemn voice cut through the air. Princess Shui Jianing, accused of treason, has been executed on the spot. As for her accomplices, his gaze swept over Xie Feima, kneeling with hands bound behind his back. They shall be executed by slow slicing, and their entire clans shall be exterminated. Truthfully, I must thank you, Ayan. Had you not revealed all of my past life's events, I could not have so swiftly discerned the princess's intentions and schemes from her movements, then joined His Majesty in turning her plot against her. Xie Feima committed a crime punishable by the execution of 9 clans. Fortunately, my service in protecting the throne and quelling the disturbance earned me merit, and the emperor granted me additional rewards. But I declined them all. On the journey back, Mother deliberately arranged for Xie Jingzhan and me to share the same carriage. It was late autumn, and the night air had grown chilly. Yet I was wrapped in Xie Jingzhan's cloak, still warm with the lingering heat of his body. It's only pitiful for my father. At his age, he was dragged down by his own son and reduced to a commoner. Though he said this, his tone held no trace of pity, only scorn. I recalled the rumors that Xie Jingzhan's birth mother was merely a common maid, forced into a concubine's role, and suddenly understood. Changing the subject, I asked, the emperor offered you a second-rank title. Did you refuse that too? Yes. I only asked him for an imperial decree granting our marriage. My eyes suddenly stung. Actually, I could have sent my parents to propose marriage. Now that the eldest princess is dead, this imperial decree isn't strictly necessary. Of course it's different. Our marriage is personally guaranteed by His Majesty. Military honors can be earned again, official ranks can be bestowed anew. With my abilities, these are inevitable. But our marriage, it must not be delayed any longer. His voice lifted as he spoke these words. His eyes and brows regained that youthful, uniquely spirited radiance. I want the entire capital to know, I am finally marrying you, Shinguiyin. Outside the carriage, the sky was gradually rolling with the first light of dawn. Inside, I stared into his sparkling eyes, and a thought suddenly surfaced in my mind. Regardless of past lives or this one, the man before me had truly loved me for many, many years. On the day Xie Feima was executed, I made a special trip to witness the execution. Only he was there, not Bai Tang. From beginning to end, Bai Tang's loyalty to the princess consort far surpassed her love for Xie Feima. So when the princess consort was pierced through the chest by a sword, knowing all was lost, she bit into the poison hidden between her teeth and took her own life. A dim candle flickered within the dungeon. I pulled my cloak tighter around me. Before I could descend the steps, Xie Feima's piercing screams echoed from below. Kill me! Kill me! By the time I reached the cell, he had endured over 400 cuts of Ling Qi. Blood pooled across the floor, exposed flesh twisted grotesquely, his chest laid bare to the stark white bone. Yet witnessing this horrific scene, I felt not a shred of fear. Only pure satisfaction filled my heart. Shinguin, for the sake of our marriage, I beg you, put me out of my misery. Before he could finish, Xie Jingzhan sliced off his tongue with a sword. Nonsense. My betrothed wife, how could there ever have been marital affection between us? Xie Feima trembled in agony, his mouth gaping like a black hole, yet unable to utter a single word. His eyes widened as he stared at me, his gaze a tangled web of hatred and regret, until finally, only a pallid, hopeless despair remained. It hurts, doesn't it? I murmured softly, over 2,000 more cuts to go. Enjoy the slow torture. After speaking, I exhaled slowly. The dark cloud of my past life, which had always weighed on my heart, seemed to vanish into thin air at that very moment. Xie Jingzhan turned to look at me. This wretched thing, it's painful to look at for too long. Madam, let's go back. I paused, startled. Whom do you call madam? The youth curved his lips into a smile, slipping an arm around my shoulders as he turned. Oh, come now. With the wedding approaching, it was bound to happen sooner or later. Sister, don't take offense. Besides, I've long been part of the Shin family. Side by side, we climbed the long staircase, passed through the narrow passageway and the prison gates, stepping out into the sunlight. A breeze stirred, and a few withered yellow leaves swirled down, landing in my palm. It was late autumn. My wedding to Xie Jingzhan was just days away. Our spring, ours alone, was within reach. The story ends here. Thank you for reading. The next chapter promises even more excitement.